at least in the Eastern Shore, we meet as the Upper Shore, kind of report out what everyone's doing, share successes and ideas, but we don't have when it comes to data, like I'm trying to wrap my mind around like what would that look like for data in regards to career counseling specifically? Like, is this something that we would look at how our students are interacting with some of the platforms that some districts might have purchased with Blueprint funds? Would this be like documenting the amount of lessons that career counselors are meeting? I know a lot of districts are looking into putting things in Google Forms for school counselors to make recommendations to meet with their career counselors so that that kind of information is kept track. But you know, I would hate as an LEA to be asked for something like at the end of whatever this time frame is that, oh, we've been doing that. I could have collected that along the way if I would have known. So just wondering if there what that step might look like for LEAs of what recommendations there should be.
So
Yeah,
I
Robin.
think I think that's what some of the things that we're hoping to get out of the convening on the ninth is to kind of for John and his team to kind of learn what the different LEAs are already collecting, so that we're not. I mean, John has made it very clear that he thinks it's very hard to ask people to collect something new that they're not already collecting unless it's necessary. So
Right.
I think where John is now is getting assessment of what is already being collected so we can see and try to develop around that. But and I think that once we understand what data is already being collected, what data we really need to report out, and that will better help the LEAs and the local workforce boards, depending on whoever's implementing career counseling, to be able to set up a successful program.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Robin, we've brainstormed around this. So some of the things, just to let you know, as indicators of having impact, is the number of sessions that students attend with career counselors, and this is one. So don't put this in the notes because I'm not sure. I don't want people to say, "Oh, you're going to do this," and that's impossible to track. But an example would be whether it was student led meeting with the career counselor or the career counselor led. So showing if there's a shift towards students being more engaged in that career counseling. Again, don't put it in the notes because I don't want people to say, "Oh my gosh, they're going to do this." But that's some of the mindset we're going towards in looking at impact.
Note we got a hand from Nona.
Yes, thank you. I think it's great that we're looking at those the different data sets or considering what data sets to collect. For those organizations that aren't necessarily workforce development boards, how would we connect with some of this as well? We've been doing career counseling for we're in our 7th year of doing it, and we're in Kent, Caroline, Dorchester, Wicomico, and Allegheny counties. And my specialists work very closely with their actual career counselor in the districts. So there's a lot of data that we've collected over the years, and I would love to be able to share, kind of what we've been doing, but just wondering the best forum to have that happen.
No, you guys do a lot of great work, and I think we would be remiss if we did not capture what you guys are doing. So I think that might be a separate conversation that you guys could sit down with John and kind of look at what data you're already tracking, and that may kind of guide us for the rest of the areas on that, so that it's alignment. So it's my recommendation that maybe you and John have a conversation about what data you guys are already collecting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, if you didn't note, I was putting some notes down to myself to have a follow-up call with you. So you might get an email from me in the next day.
Sounds good. Thank you.
We have any final questions as we start to move toward our next phase? I want to make sure we've addressed what's out there, what's in the room on this topic.
Yeah, I was just going to make one other comment quickly. I don't know if this is up for consideration when you're surveying students or staff, but maybe there's some opportunities in the future so that, you know, we already do survey students and staff for like the Maryland surveys and things like that. Like, I wonder if this is something that could be eventually built into the surveys that we already have, so it doesn't become like an additional survey, you know, if that can become a component of that someday, where you would have data from students. I mean, we do that for students across secondary, and you know, that staff get that as well. So I think that's also important to know, like, all staff, their view and their perception of career counseling, because I think that could be important to know the role that all of our teachers are playing in it. Just an idea of throwing that out there, of if we already are surveying in other areas, so that we're not over assessing and surveying students and staff.
Yeah, Robin, that's part of where we're trying to think of, can we get the key elements down to just a couple of questions? So, you know, we don't have 10 questions that we want to add to an additional survey, but if we can get it down to, you know, 2 questions, maybe 3. And again, that was the thought with integrating it within the existing LEAs, so that all they're doing is reporting generic bulk data, right? And that helps from implementation. Will probably help with compliance. So people, you know, if they, like you said, if someone sees, you know, a 3rd survey that they have to fill out, they're probably going to skip that one, and we'd be the new man on the block. But if it's a, you know, 1 more question at the end, 2 more questions at the end, they may go ahead and fill that out. So we're leaning strongly in that path.
All right, and we should acknowledge, thank you, everybody. That was an excellent discussion. We should acknowledge we've had a couple guests join, additional. So if we can, Dr. Kamari Collins. And we also have Dr. Christy Dreyer. Sorry if I cut you off, Kamari. But welcome, you know, Vice President Student Success and Vice President Academics from Cecil and Chesapeake. Teeing up perfectly in time for our community college discussion. Olivia, do you want to share a little bit about this one?
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining, and to our newest guests who were just able to join. We really just want to take a moment to look at the role of community colleges as it relates to not just career counseling, but really all of Pillar 3. And so we have dual enrollment as a post-CCR pathway up through an associate degree. And so we wanted to kind of bring everyone together to discuss how you are working with the LEAs to work on all of these areas. And also, I've invited someone from Howard County to talk about some of the innovative ways they are thinking about supporting students through this particular post-CCR pathway.
Well, thank you. It strikes me that's a good place to start if we have someone guesting for a presentation with a good idea.
Right, so good afternoon. My name is Larissa Siddiqui, and I am the coordinator of dual enrollment for Howard County Public Schools. It is great to be here this afternoon to share. We work really closely with our partners in higher education, Howard Community College. We've had really an excellent partnership for many, many years, and then that was obviously codified in 2013 when dual enrollment became legislated and then has only continued to grow. This fall, we actually had about 1,400 students take courses on the community college's campus. And then we have an additional almost 3,000 students in our high school buildings eligible to earn college credit in some of our high school-based dual enrollment courses. So we actually offer dual enrollment in both of those modalities. We offer it in our high school buildings taught by our high school teachers that are duly accredited by Howard Community College. And then we also have students attend courses on the community college's campus. As we really looked at Blueprint and the Blueprint legislation, and specifically, you know, the drivers behind the legislation, which is providing access and opportunities for students and placing them on a pathway to complete that associate's degree. And we also had 7 years of, you know, really great data around which courses students were taking to earn college credit for, which ones they were earning both high school and college credit for, and how those courses kind of had an impact on their future dual enrollment success. We took a look at all of those factors and put together a new model that we're going to be implementing in 2024, 2025. And what that new model looks like is that students, any students in grades 9 through 12 will have access to a very, I don't want to say limited, but it is a shorter list of courses. I am going to place a document in the chat that might help kind of frame this a little bit just for assistance sake. But we have this this list of courses is available to all students. And what we did is we selected these courses because for a couple different reasons. As you can see, they are appropriate for students in grades 9 through 12 to take. They are all eligible for students to earn both high school credit and college credit. They are available either inside of our high school buildings or on HCC's campus. So they are available in both modalities. And then if you could scroll to the bottom of this first page, please. What you will see is that once students have met one of these 3 benchmarks here at the bottom, and so the first is that they can take a combination of any of the courses on that list for a total of 9 college credits and earn a C or higher, or they can take English 121, which is the equivalent to our English 11 class or higher. We also have English 12 equivalents, and one additional course from that list with a B or higher, or college level math, and one other course from that list with a B or higher. Then they will unlock the expanded course list. And so that is the list of almost 300 some odd courses that students can take on Howard Community College's campus that they are eligible to take at no cost to the student. And, you know, the question is, this is different than what we've done in the past. Why did we do this? With a focus on a couple different things. The first is, again, that pathway to completion, setting students, you know, up for opportunities to on-ramp into the program at every grade, right? Every grade level. And then putting them on that pathway to completing that associate's degree and having it count towards those high school graduation requirements. And also, Howard Community College has recently adopted a holistic advising model. And so bringing it back to the part around the, you know, kind of the advising around desired career pathways, using these as a springboard into what those different career pathways would look like. So, and using HCC's existing resources that our students are already accessing as Howard Community College students. And so using that to then springboard into kind of what that next step would be in their career. So we did develop this in concert with Howard Community College. We spent a couple days just together, really looking at the approved course list, really reviewing the data and how students were performing in these courses, and how participation in one course then fed into the next course and future course success. So truly using it as a building block type of system. So the great news is that as far as managing the process internally, we do have a daily data share between Howard Community College and Howard County Public Schools, where students' dual enrollment registration populates directly into our Howard County Public Schools student information system. So we're actually able to see in our system if our students have met these benchmarks or not. So we're able to kind of, our school counselors have access to that information, and they'll be able to, as well as our career readiness advisors, and they'll be able to advise students on which courses would be a good fit, and where they kind of fall on if they've met this benchmark or not. So we are excited. The feedback and reception from the community overall, we've started rolling it out and it's been great. They're excited that students, again, kind of have a little bit more of a focused pathway. So that's a general overview. Olivia, did I cover everything you were hoping that I would? Did I miss anything?
I think you did a great job. This is so exciting to me. The first time I saw it, and I just started thinking about some of the questions that have come up around the on-ramp for students, and not saying, oh, just because you're in 11th grade now, it's everything and all of that, but really understanding that regardless of benchmark assessment, students need support and an on-ramp. And so I just thought this was a great way to show that.
Well, and one of the things that's really great about the courses that we picked is several of those do not have placement exam requirements, right? Students can, kind of just go right into those classes. Now, some of them do, just as as would be the case in any other institute of higher education. But what we really wanted to do is mock up the authentic college experience in this setting and in this environment. And, we can all harken back to our days of undergrad where we had to get those gen ed requirements out of the way before we could take the classes in our major that we were very much interested in. And so we really wanted to do that, something similar with this. So thank you.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Just a couple quick, a little bit more information on the data share and what's involved in that, but also, you said freshmen and sophomores too, right?
Yeah.
And so good. And for that, we have a similar program in that freshmen and sophomores can be eligible, but Blueprint envisions the CCR achievement by the end of their sophomore year. So do you have any check in place to identify which freshmen or sophomores are most likely to be successful?
Oh, those are great questions. The first, the data share is very exciting. And so when we first initially built the Howard County Public Schools Office of Dual Enrollment, this program was designed with a ton of input from high school counselors. And one of the things that they were very intent on is that they wanted to try to get as much information as possible regarding student course enrollment. And so we have a system that students will sign off on allowing data to be shared between our two institutions. Then and that's done internally through HCPSS. Then they will apply to Howard Community College and their records will be linked. So there's two student information, or their two student ID numbers are linked. And then once a day at designated times of the day, a designated time of day, I believe it's at 5:30 or 6 p.m., we get a feed from Howard Community College into our system, and there's a screen where the student registration information pops up. And so, for example, if a student enrolls in English 121 at Howard Community College, the school counselor gets a notification that this student has made changes to their dual enrollment course load. And the counselor is then prompted to go in, and there is a screen where they can link that course for high school credit. So it really is a excellent automated system and a true testament, one, to the great data team that we have at both of our institutions that built this and allow these different fields to be shared. So it's not like Howard Community College has access to our student information system. We don't have, you know, that's obviously it's different. It's a data feed that goes into it instead, and vice versa.
Does it include student success data?
It does include grade outcomes. So we do get information on the final grades. As far as how students are progressing throughout the school, you know, throughout the semester on Howard Community College's campus, that's a little bit different. We do rely on Howard Community College to keep us updated. They have a couple different systems in place. Mainly, I believe they use CRM Advise to create a series of early alerts, and then they share that information with us.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then we do know that the CCR indicator, you know, is at the end of 10th grade. Our dual enrollment partnership obviously predated the implementation of Blueprint. And so it's always been important for both of our organizations that, you know, students do have access. They actually have access to dual enrollment as early as 8th grade under our existing memorandum of understanding. And so really, again, the course, and for the most part, 8th graders typically take either a world languages class or a math class, depending on the student, but mostly world languages. And so we will be able, you know, once we are in the full implementation of Blueprint, to have that indicator in place, if a student has met the CCR requirement or not, because that will also feed in. But we also, because of the volume, wanted to also put a process in place to manage it prior to the full implementation.
How do they, I'm being dense. This is my last question because I know I'm asking too many. Actually, I'm going to stop. Are there questions on the call that haven't come forward?
I was just going to ask some of the logistics behind your reporting system as well. Like, what grading system do you use in Howard? Like, is it PowerSchool? Is it something that talks like nightly with PowerSchool, or what is the system that you guys
Howard Community College, they use Colleague. So that's their system. Our system is Synergy. We use Synergy.
Okay.
And our internal Howard County Public Schools Synergy team actually built several customizations specifically for this process. That answer your question, Robin?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm selfishly thinking of, and Dave might also be, because our gears are probably turning on how this could work on the shore. I'm thinking about this from a perspective of like some of the smaller districts in rural areas that share MOUs with multiple districts. Like for us, there's 5 of us that are connected to Chesapeake College. So I'm just thinking of some of those logistics of how something like that could work for Chesapeake College, for example, and meeting the needs of all 5 districts, but then having something that is, you know, cohesive for everybody. But that's for another meeting, I think. I'm just thinking out loud.
And I'm also happy to chat with you offline about that, just to kind of dive deep and talk about the process for building this. It was a labor of love. It did not happen overnight. But we're very, we rely on that obviously daily, you know, so that our counselors know what's going on.
Thanks for sharing.
I have a follow-up question, just about what happens if you see that a student may not be successful. So let's say a student's in a class and they may do well in 2 classes and not in a third, or what are the next steps, or what advising counseling happens?
That's great. So we actually have a staff member in Howard County Public Schools who is a 0.5 teacher. And then the other 0.5, she spends supporting students who are enrolled at Howard Community College. Those students are typically identified either by the high school counselors or using Howard Community College's early alert system that they need additional support. And so this particular individual will meet with them periodically throughout the semester. She will meet with them virtually, in person. She will go to their high school. She will meet with them on HCC's campus. I have had her track down students in college classrooms when needed. And so we really do a lot of proactive interventions. And as a result, the initial data is that dual enrollment students are typically more successful in their HCC courses than the traditional HCC population because I think they have a ton of scaffolding. We also do a series of community nights at the beginning of the year to engage parents, because parents oftentimes are so used to having access to their students' data and records and how they're, progressing in a class. And that's not the case, right? When a student is taking a course at a college campus, it's an authentic college experience. Parents don't have that access. And so I talk to parents about some different tools and skills that they can kind of keep in their back pocket to stay engaged with their student and their progress. If a student does receive either an F or an A, and NA means they signed up for a class and then they just never showed up, then they will need to appeal to remain in the dual enrollment program and continue to have Howard County Public Schools cover the cost of that course. So they complete the appeal, and I review each of those appeals individually. And I look at the extenuating circumstances. And I also look at, I have conversations with the school counselor and any other relevant staff who might be engaged with that particular student. If the appeal is granted, the student has to have permission from their school counselor, their parent, their high school administrator, and they have to agree to meet with the Jumpstart Student Success Liaison, who I mentioned earlier, meet with her weekly the following semester. And so, and she has to sign off on that appeal form before I will approve it, saying that the student has reached out and that they have scheduled meetings. Those students are also required to sign up for tutoring at Howard Community College. One of the many great things about HCC is that they offer free tutoring in connection with any courses that students are enrolled in. And so the student needs to give me proof that they signed up for tutoring as well. So that's kind of what that process looks like. This was the first year that we enforced that. And again, I mean, we had several students who submitted appeals, and I did grant, almost like I would say about 50% of them based on extenuating circumstances and documented challenges. And then that eligibility will reset the following school year. So it's not like if they're not successful once, they're out of the program forever. But we will, we'll just kind of say, okay, let's take a minute. Let's, get a little bit more soft skills development, time management, self-advocacy, things like that.
Just noting, thank you very much. And we're not moving on yet. There's lots to talk about here, but Dr. Christy Dreyer has a hand, and I know Cecil has long had a really healthy early college program.
Yeah, I did want to back. I think this may have been what Dave was getting at when how do the pre-CCR students get access? Do you have criteria for those students in 9th and 10th grade? And if they aren't eligible in 9th, can they be eligible in 10th?
So we ask that students have an unweighted GPA of 2.0 or higher. That's that initial benchmark that we ask them to meet. And yes, absolutely. And again, I will on a case-by-case basis grant exemptions to that, depending. I do try to examine each of those on an individual basis as just to ensure that access is granted when it's needed.
And that's your only criteria for access?
That's the only criteria for access. Again, some classes at Howard Community College obviously have prerequisites that need to be met above and beyond that. But several of them do not, and especially the courses on that initial approved course list.
That's fantastic. So I will say Cecil County Public Schools is not near that yet. But Dave mentioned our early college academy program, which has been we've been gosh, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years, we've been running a pretty robust early college academy. It's for talented students, 3.0 or higher, who start in 9th grade. And by the time they're finished, they do their first 2 years at their home school. They come to Cecil their junior and senior year. And by the time they're done, they have their associate's degree in general studies. They usually graduate with that a week or two before they finish their high school. So we do have, you know, it and has great completion rates. To your point, a lot of support mechanisms are in place, but these are really talented, skilled students who frankly complete and do often better than we'll quote our native students, because they're just talented, motivated students. And we have worked on this with CCPS so that many of the courses also meet high school requirement, so students don't have to duplicate. You know, I think for dual enrollment, I think in addition to those students, we're trying to expand access that way. So students who have a 3.0, there's a set number of classes they can take at their high school, and then there are other courses they can take at Cecil. As in every school district, so I'm very fascinated by Howard. I think you know, funding is a concern for CCPS. Our dual enrollment and DCA programs account for about 30% of our enrollment and have for several years. So we didn't really see a huge spike when Blueprint came into implementation, because we've been doing a lot of that work already. But I think it's becoming a concern now on how they fund all the students that want to do this now. And I know it's not the only county, so I'm not calling Cecil out. I know a lot of the other counties, particularly a lot of the smaller rural ones, are really struggling with funding and how to meet the student need, because the idea behind Blueprint, which is fantastic, is providing access to those students who normally wouldn't be able to think about getting some college credits or doing something like this.
Yeah, I can second that funding is a concern for us as well in Talbot. I was just going to also ask, what does this look like do you offer programs for more of like the career in tech programs? Like, do you offer any like maybe the non-credit certification programs? Is that available to high school students also?
So that also a great question. We do have a few programs that are available to high school students. Howard Community College is truly completely kind of expanding and I don't want to say redoing, but they are certainly focused on strategic expansion of CTE programs. And so we are writing a few of those programs into the MOU for next year, specifically around health assistance. And we are looking to add more as they continue to grow their programs as well. A couple of their offerings when we started this a few years ago were limited by age, the age of students, but they're making those adjustments. So that's great.
And would they have the same prerequisites, or would there be like a different pathway for those students?
I think we need to take a really closer, like a deeper dive into what the content is going to be. I do believe that a benchmark of some type definitely would need to be in there, but we would want to make sure that it's tailored just again, so that it's not a barrier, but in fact, a pathway for access.
Lori, I think you gave us a lot to think about. So I think we're all really excited about the model that Howard has been able to do in partnership with the LEA and the community college partner. And so I think all of us are thinking about ways to implement something similar in our areas.
I think it's truly a testament to the collaboration that exists between our two institutions. We have such a strong foundation that we were able to build on this. And, you know, it really is great to be so closely aligned with our community college partners. And just to, you know, feel kind of mutually supported. I think it's great. And believe in the work. That's great.
That's awesome. Can you just restate the number of students? I want to make sure we capture that because it's not like you have 50 students.
So I have, so this year we have 1,442 students taking over 4,000 classes on Howard Community College's campus. That's just this fall. And then we are in the process of students registering to earn college credit in our high school based classes. And that is, I believe at last count, close to 2,000 students, but we have upwards of 3,000 students who are eligible to earn that credit. I will, in the chat box, I will put an enrollment chart for your information in a minute.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we're capturing the volume also, because it's one thing to do it with a small number, but you guys have been able to scale this up to so many students.
What percentage is that, do you know, of, I just wonder what percentage that is of Howard's enrollment?
Of Howard Community College's enrollment, approximately 1/3 of their enrollment are dually enrolled students.
I think that's, and I think Christy would say that's probably similar at Cecil. I know it's about 33%. You know, Dr. Collins could say better for Chesapeake. It's about 33% at Chesapeake. And the difference in the scale in some ways, you know, we don't have systems that talk to each other. That takes some IT consistency. In our case, it would be between 5 LEAs in the college. And a lot of bandwidth on the part of those teams. I don't know if it's possible in that scenario, but the high school counselors sign off on if a particular course is in alignment with a student's academic goals. So they don't get notified. They notify, in a way, us that, you know, that this course sequence is gonna meet the student's goals, and that's part of how we ensure that the freshmen and sophomores who may come to us are vetted. And we're building an early alert system. We already do midterm and final grade communication. We're trying to build in a couple more communication points in there, but again, it's manual. Now, some of it we can automate through Excel, you know, reporting, but scaling this, I hear about 1/3 of enrollment from many colleges across the state when they ask about dual, but the scale of that operation differs, and so do the resources that support them. Christy, if you want to comment, I saw you on mute.
No, I agree. I mean, I think, you know, when we go to our academic VP meetings, I think many of them are at about 1/3 of their enrollment is dual enrollment.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, a very broad number, but I think scale is, you know, I just looked up our ECA alone is 244 students are enrolled in our ECA program across all 4 grades. That for us, that's very significant. That doesn't even count dual enrollment. So I think it is scale, and I'm in awe of the fact that you have systems that talk to each other. I mean, I think that's fantastic because ours is manual as well. You know, we collect it and we email guidance counselors that are, you know, where students are at risk. So we're doing the work. We're just doing it in a very different way. To Dave's point, scale and resources.
I will say that data share is the backbone. Truly, it's the difference maker. And kind of going back to David's point, also one of the purposes of this new model was, again, like kind of that streamlined pathway, alignment with high school and college credits simultaneously. And, you know, just kind of trying to simplify it a little bit with the focus on completion.
I think the biggest one is Access is 2.0. I mean, to me, that is huge. I know the academic VPs just signed a statewide agreement where we've all agreed that, you know, 2.6 would be the GPA, and we can go lower, but that 2.6 would be, I think, and we felt pretty progressive with that, but 2.0 provides a lot of students an opportunity. And I think the group has talked about it before, but I think, looking at students who are career and college ready, we're really comfortable with the academic college part. We haven't really addressed the career readiness. And so then when you get to that, you're looking at what are you doing for the non-credit and the workforce pathways? And 2.0 may help some of that as an access point, because there are a lot of students who are very career ready, but do not have a 2.6 or 3.0. But, so I think it's something that we need to continue to talk about and flesh out for people and for students if we really want to meet the vision blueprint.
Yeah, and that's when the access and the funding conversations meet, where you say, if you look at success rates at a 2.6, we have excellent success rates. And just as you said, even, the rate that students who are dual enrolled tend to stand up to that challenge and complete at high numbers. I think our success rates, I don't know, it may be, it's north of 500 students. If you count all of the dual enrolled, or 500 enrollments, I should say. I'll be careful about that. But the success rates have been above 80%, A, B, or C. We have that brought across the state. But how do you, if you see students successful at 2.6, and if you're seeing it at 2.0, how does that meet the funding pressures that do exist?
Funding pressures are very real. And yeah, I mean that I echo the same sentiment that was shared earlier in the call. However, what we don't want to do is create a barrier for access.
When I also think another key piece to that too is not just the access, but then having support along the way. So your position that supports students, I think, is crucial. I think of students when I was an AP that I assisted like as best as I could, but it was the kids that went out of their way to seek for help of like, hey, how do I do this or log into this? And it all connects together of the system that you have that speaks to the school system, and then having a point person to track those students down. And again, for us, that comes down to, again, another like funding issue, and not just funding, but the fact that we have positions open in other areas. So even if we did have the funding to have that position, we wouldn't be able to justify it because of math openings and and other teaching positions that we need to fill. So that's great that you're able to provide that for students, because I think that signing up is one thing, or giving them the access to sign up, but then having that support along the way is what's really important.
She's actually an educator in our so she is both adjunct faculty as well as the support staff. And going back to the funding piece, I mean, we wanted to make sure we had those supports built in, because the funding piece is so critical.
We're zeroing in on the last 15 minutes. We're not there yet, but we're going to conclude at 4 after a few minutes of just talking about next committee time, so meeting time. So are there questions out there, that haven't been addressed? Welcome them, or comments.
I don't know if this is the purpose of this committee, but I think that sharing the best practices between the LEAs and the community college. I mean, I think this is remarkable what Howard has done, but I'm not even sure if Anne Arundel is doing something similar to this or this, but having opportunity as we're looking at how do we make sure that more students go onto a post-CCR pathway of dual enrollment, but also bring it back to career counseling. How do the career counselors need to help prepare those students for those opportunities? So, I mean, I think this was very enlightening for me. But I think this is something that somehow like I said, I don't know if it's the role of this committee or something else. But having these conversations going to help with Blueprint being successful. I think, helping other community colleges and high schools figure out how to work together as we are looking to have more kids go into a dual enrollment CCR pathway.
We do leverage our career readiness advisors in our high schools to support connecting students with dual enrollment. They are kind of our high school based, feet on the ground per se, providing information. They do monthly information sessions, collaborate with the counselors. So, I mean, yeah, I do think that I agree that the work is absolutely intertwined.
So are you working with the career coaches that are being brought on by the local workforce board? I know in Howard County, what they're doing is they're bringing on two sets of career coaches. One is going to be hired by the school system. One's going to be hired by the local workforce board.
So we are engaging with the school-based staff, and we are in the process of hiring those, the Workforce Development Board staff, and we will be engaging with them as well once that team is fully deployed.
Good, very good.
And I think your question is excellent, Kirk. Anything that this committee does to help ensure and facilitate the successful implementation and the expansion of access. And, I think the 1/3 enrollment number at many community colleges across the state and the corresponding success rate shows we have something to build upon. And these ideas like this one at Howard are fantastic. And to create a way or to share and ensure that those kinds of ideas kind of filter through, because there's ideas coming from every corner. And I know those career counseling MOUs are kind of part of the hub of that. At least they are for our counties.
Well, I'm appreciative of the opportunity to just share. We're proud of this work. We're proud of what we built. And, I'm always happy to answer any additional questions. I'll certainly put my email address in the chat box so that anyone, who wants to follow up with me directly is more than welcome to.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, are there other comments or questions? Again, thanks to Howard and Marie and her team.
Okay, I think we are on schedule for this meeting.
The first. That's a first.
I know, it is, it is.
Because we're doing so many great things. It's such important work.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we have a couple of items to follow up with. One is potentially suggesting another standing meeting time and date. And also to highlight that our next meeting will be delving into IRC, so the IRC discussion, and talking about CTE programs of study. And so we're hopeful that a lot of you here today will be able to come back. A lot of our guests for our next meeting, so that we can have some robust conversation around this other pathway. So our options are Tuesdays. What I think you guys can all see Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And so if there is a time that works for everyone.
And first and foremost, the pillar 3, the ones who are on the hook. And I think this is a great guest list to carry into our next conversation. Not that we couldn't add or make adjustments, but for the standard time, I'm looking at Nona and Kirk, et cetera. And Molly,
It would-
yeah.
And it would be, it would consistently be like the third or
The
Tuesday,
third.
third Wednesday. Okay.
We'll shoot for the third. If it has to change, I think this would be the time to discuss. And so that makes the third Tuesday is the 20th.
Yeah.
Of February.
Tuesdays tend to be better for my schedule.
I can't do the 3 to 6.
Is there a time in the afternoon like 3 to 4 or 3 to 4:30 or?
Yeah, I really 4, and it's just being on mom duty. I feel
I
really weird
completely
to get my
understand.
kids.
So do you
And
want to
then if
shoot for,
we were to, oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say Thursdays, if we're standing to that third week, I would not be able to do mornings.
I don't think I can do. Let me drag that out. I don't think I can do on the third Thursday. Let's see.
Yeah, Thursdays are hard for me because that's when we have our MWA meetings.
So maybe we cross the Thursday off.
Hmm.
Wednesdays are hard for me. So if we can do like a 3, maybe a 2:30 to 4, or we could do a 3 to 4:30, understanding Robin would have to leave at about 4, but at least you would be there for the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, and I could probably 9 times out of 10 make it, but every once in a while, might have to skip out a little early.
Is that where we are? I'm trying to follow y'all. 11:45.
I think we are 3 to 4:30 as a potential
Yeah, on Tuesdays.
on Tuesdays.
Looks good.
All right. That's good. All right. We'll send that around.
Sure.
Now, do we need an extra meeting? If we look at our topics upcoming, the next one is a month from now on IRCs. Do they need the feedback before then? On the industry recognized credential information.
Well, this is the first time that this group will be talking about IRCs. And so I will, I guess, see what other folks feel. I don't know if Rachel or Libby
I
or
see Molly unmuting.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Molly.
is this regarding so feedback for sort of the proposed industry recognized credential definition and criteria? That survey link is open until January 31st. So is this meeting going to be, let's see, you said the third Tuesday? So it'd be like
Yes.
February 20th. Yeah, so we probably would want feedback prior to that. I mean, we can certainly present and sort of have discussions and so forth. But we probably want to be considering any feedback prior to that point.
Was it 1:31?
Yeah, that's when the survey's open until.
So I know the M4 CAOs have provided some feedback. I know Mac is providing some feedback. I know some people individually on this team may have filled out the survey link already. But But if we want to kind of speak on this as a pillar 3 collective, we either have to do it through an email thread where we build a document together, in a consensus, or an intervening meeting before the end of this month, is what I'm hearing. Any thoughts on that?
I think where this is an important topic for this committee to provide feedback on, it may be worth having a special meeting or a meeting where the CTE committee can kind of present the core elements and we have a discussion and have a recommendation from this committee.
I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. This is a pretty big piece to that pillar.
So, the 30th is a Tuesday. And, the afternoon, I'm not available that day, but I'm available earlier. So if we could do like the 11:45 to 1:15 on the 30th, that could work for me, but I don't know, Molly, if you have, availability to kind of give us some of that initial information. Are you available on the 30th at that time?
Yeah, so I've got a couple, like I've got an 11:30 and a 1 o'clock, but I think both of them, I can try to move around, so I can make myself available.
Okay. Kirk, Nona,
The 30th will
Dave.
work. The 30th will work for me. I have to move some things around, but there are things I can move around.
Works for me as well.
I'm in.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, works for me. So, are we gonna have an 11:45 or are we gonna do 12?
I can be flexible that morning. So whatever is best for you all.
Okay. Molly, what
Same for
do you
me.
recommend?
Whatever works for you all. As I said, I have an 11:30, but I could potentially move it. But if we moved it to 12, then I don't have to move the 11:30.
Let's do it. Let's
Let's say
accommodate.
12
that.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Let's say 12 to 1:30. Perfect. Thanks, Dave.
And then we'll invite our guests as well, and just some reflection on it. It's good to have some feedback on this one.
Absolutely.
Robin, would it make sense to invite the CTE Association?
Yeah. What I was thinking was reaching out to MCTA and seeing ideally what I would like is to have some colleagues maybe who represent other areas of the state. Because we all have our own challenges and successes. It's just unique. CTE looks different across the state sometimes. So I could reach out to them, see if anyone's interested.
Okay, thank you. And so I guess we would have the meeting on the 30th, and then our next meeting would be the 20th of February. Okay. 3 to 4:30.
Got it.
All right. Anything else before we close out this meeting?
At some point, are we planning to bring some people together to talk about that third pathway, the
support
APIB.
pathway?
well, more the
APIB.
APIB pathway?
Yes, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I think each month we've picked a different pathway to discuss.
The answer can obviously be yes to that. Or we'll just see if we've already scheduled it and if we haven't, where we can put it.
Mhm.
Okay, good. APIB. I'll add that to the notes and attach the schedule, the yearly of upcoming, so we all know. This is pretty awesome. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, guests.
Thank you all. This is a great meeting as always. We hope all of you can come back to add to our future discussions. And we will see you next time. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.